What's up, guys? This is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I bring all of you guys an updated version of my Evilswarm deck. So, ever since the Secret Forces have come out, as you guys probably know by now, the meta has drastically changed to be a fairly Necros-centric format from now until the next ban list. So, I decided to sort of play more anti-meta for the rest of the format, I guess you could say. And I've been really experimenting with a variety of different anti-meta strategies and anti-meta decks. So I decided to go back into one of the most infamous anti-meta decks of all time, which is the Evilswarm deck, update it for this current format, and bring it all to you guys. So let's get right into it. First off, we have the 3 Evilswarm Kyurem. We have to run 3. It basically is a one-turn Evilswarm Ophion. Whenever it is live with, I believe, 2 Evilswarms engraved. And we want to see it as soon as possible because it is our big power plays to get into an instant rank 4. So we have to play 3 Kyurem. Next up, we do play the 3 Evilswarm Caster. Caster is the one that helps us get through our hands quickly and is, again, basically a 2-turn rank 4 play. We have to run 3 Caster because it is searchable. And Caster really does help us get our Ophion either first turn or as soon as possible. Next up, for the final 3 of Evilswarm, we do play 3 Evilswarm Heliotrope. Although Heliotrope by itself is pretty slow because it is just a vanilla, we have to run 3 because we do run Rescue Rabbit within this deck. So that essentially makes Heliotrope a standard 3 of. It's really slow by itself outside of something like having this in a Caster or whatnot, but again, like I said, we need to have it for the Rescue Rabbit, as well as it really isn't completely horrible if you do draw this by itself because it is a 1950 beater, which is pretty dang big for just a level 4 vanilla. So that's why we run the 3 Heliotrope. Next up, we run the 2 Evilswarm Thunderbird. Thunderbird is sort of like Heliotrope in the sense that it is pretty slow because it doesn't have any way to get us a rank 4 by itself. However, it can get up to just as big as Heliotrope if you do use Thunderbird's effect. And it's really helpful that Thunderbird keeps us missing targets by banishing Thunderbird itself, as we'll constantly have that one level 4 on field, so all we basically have to do is summon another level 4, and we have a rank 4 right there. So we do play the 2 Thunderbird. Next up, we do play 2 Mandragora. 2 Mandragoras, again, to just elongate our rank 4 plays. It helps us get our rank 4s easier, and frankly, I feel 3 is a little bit too much. It gets a little cloggy at 3, so I like the 2 for now. For the non-Evilswarm monsters, we start off with the 1 Rescue Rabbit. Like I said, Rescue Rabbit is, again, much like Evilswarm Kyurem in the sense that it is a one-card Ophion play, so we do have the Rescue Rabbit just for that. And then finally, for the last monster, we do play the 1 Dark Arm Dragon because everything in the deck outside of Rescue Rabbit is a dark monster, and we do have quite a bit of graveyard manipulation with Kyurem. So that's why we can run the 1 Dark Arm Dragon. So that is it for the monsters. Moving on to the spell lineup, we start off with 3 Infestation Pandemic. I know I had 2 in my last list, but honestly, I decided to bump it up to 3 for the big reason that I'm seeing a lot of people running Mirror Force and whatnot now in their Yosenju decks and whatnot. So, in my opinion, back row is getting a lot more, I should say, prevalent, or just spells and traps in general. So I really want that 3rd Pandemic to help protect my Evilswarms, as well as in the future, in a coming card choice within the deck, I'll get to the reason why I did bump up this to 3. So we have the 3 Pandemic. Next up, we have the 2 Pot of Duality. Everything is normal summonable in this deck, as what Caster and Kyurem say is that they do additional normal summons. So we can use Pot of Duality in this deck to help dig for those extra cards, and we aren't really restricted by it. Next up, we have 2 MST. Frankly, I don't have to worry about back row too much within this deck, so I can afford to run 2 MST because we do run the 3 Pandemic now, so we do still run enough back row protection where I can cut MST down to 2. So we have the 2 MST. Next up, we do have the 1 Reinforcements of the Army. This essentially is our 4th Caster, so we can use this to get our casters as soon as possible. Next up for the spells is a very fun card of mine. I do run 2 Mask Training II in this deck. Having the access to Dark Law within any anti-meta deck is a very powerful choice. So we do have the 2 Mask Change the second, so we do have that Dark Law access. Moving on, we do have the 1 Pot of Dichotomy. We have the Pot of Dichotomy in here because every single main deck monster is of a different type. So having the Dichotomy to help get us through our deck a little bit quicker is always helpful, and it can always be beneficial to get those 2 cards because it could be our whatever out card we need, like a Raigeki or a Book of Moon. So we have the Dichotomy for that. Moving on, we do have the 1 Dimensional Fissure. This deck is an anti-meta deck, like I said many times. So we have to have the Dimensional Fissure because firstly, we can function sort of under this card. As long as we have our Ophions on field, we really don't have to worry about our graveyard and having no monsters in our grave all that much. So we do have the 1 Dimensional Fissure, as it really does screw over a lot of decks this format. Finally, for the last 3 spells is again just the power 1-ofs of Snatch Steal, Raigeki, and Book of Moon. All very powerful spells that I feel are staple in any deck. So that is it for these spells. Moving on to the traps. We start off with the 1 Infestation Infection. This is essentially our searcher of the deck. We only run 1 because we can search it with Ophion whenever we need to. And this really helps us get our slower Evilswarms out of our hand or out of our field so that we can get more optimal Evilswarm monsters to play. One thing that I really like is that you are able to basically just switch out your Heliotropes or any slow cards like your Thunderbird out for things like an Ophion or a Caster, whatever might just get you that instant Ophion. So that's why I really do like Infection. Next, we have 3 Vanity's Emptiness. Again, Vanities is a very powerful card this format, as it basically can shut down the entire Nekros game and the entire Nekros match because they really can't function under it. So we do have the 3 Vanities for that and any other special summoning decks like Burning Abyss and Satellar Knight. And another good thing is that much like Pot of Duality, we can function ourselves under Vanities because what Castor and Kirkion say is that they do additional normal summons. So Vanities doesn't really hurt us. All it really does is just not let us go into extra deck, which isn't really a problem. So we do run the 3 Vanities. Moving on, we do run 2 Call of the Haunted. Call of the Haunted is actually a very fun card in this deck, primarily for the reason that if you can do a, how should I say, a 1-card Ophion play, and then have one of your Evilswarms in graveyard from the detach of Ophion, a pretty cool play is that if you have Mastering the second in your hand, you can actually Call of the Haunted, that card you just detached, Mask Change second it into a Dark Law, and then you end up having a pretty solid board of Ophion and a Dark Law. So we do have the Call of the Haunted for that, as well as to also continue our rank 4 plays whenever we have to. Next up, much like Dimensional Fissure, we do play the 1 Macrocosmos. Again, we really don't have to worry about our cards getting banished, as basically all it essentially does is make our Kirkions less active, but that's also why we have Caster in the deck, and also why we have Infection. So that is why we can constantly get our Evilswarms that we need, and Macro doesn't really hurt the deck at all. Finally, for the final few traps, we do play the 1 Bottomless and the 1 Compulse. Very good traps this format still. And I don't play Solemn or Torrential because Torrential, in my opinion, is just a pretty bad card nowadays. And Solemn, I don't like Solemn anymore because the 2,000 cost really does bite me at times. So I have omitted Solemn from this list as well as many of my others, as you guys saw. And then finally, for the last tech choice kind of in my deck, I do play the 1 Eradicator Epidemic Virus. The reason why I play this is, actually this is kind of playing along with the mentality of me running 3 Pandemic now. Eradicator is very good, as if you ever have your Ophions without materials, now this is sort of a way where you can utilize those dead Ophions more than just beaters, as you can actually tribute off Ophions for Eradicator. And against Nekros or something like that, they're extremely powerful because in the Nekros matchup, if you cast spells against them, they cannot play spells and they have to send them all to the graveyard essentially. So without ritual summons, Nekros basically can't play Yu-Gi-Oh. So having the Eradicator for those matchups or stuff like Satellar Knights and you can call traps and whatnot, having this card for those matchups really helps swing the game in your favor, and a lot of your opponents will never expect this card in this deck. So that's why we do run the 1 Eradicator. So that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we do still run the 3 Evilswarm Ophion because this is an Evilswarm deck. We have to run 3 Ophion because it is just that stellar. Moving on, we have the 1 Evilswarm Exciton Knight. Again, you should run Exciton Knight in his own deck because a lot of people forget that he is an Evilswarm. So we do still run the one Exciton Knight. We run the one Evilswarm Thanatos to help us get around any problematic destruction cards and whatnot. We run the one Evilswarm Bahamut whenever we want to steal our opponent's monsters to do plays with it on our own. And then we have the last Evilswarm, the one Evilswarm Nightmare, whenever our opponent might do a big special summon, or I think whenever they do a big pendulum summon, maybe in the Cleefort matchup, you can flip them all face down. So having the Nightmare for those situations is always nice. Moving on to the more generic rank 4s, we do have the one 103 Ragnar Zero, again for the Cleefort matchup, as this deck doesn't really have any mainboarded answers to that matchup. So we do have extra deck answers like the Evilswarm Nightmare and the Ragnar Zero. We have the one Gaga Cowboy, so we can poke for game and steal a lot of them. We have the one Master Key Beetle to help us protect our Ophions and whatnot. We have the one Abyss Dweller for any graveyard decks that we might run into. We have the one Castel, because Castel is still a great staple rank 4 and should be in any deck that has rank 4 access. And then for the last XYZ monster, we do have the one number 80 Rhapsody. Firstly, because it's very good in the Necros matchup because you can't banish their mirrors from grave, as well as the prospect of having a 3750 Ophion on board is pretty great, especially if you can, I don't know how, but if you ever do get the board of Ophion backed up with a Rhapsody, also protected by a Master Key Beetle, that is pretty ridiculous, and the aspect of having that chance to make a board like that is very nice in my opinion. Finally, for the last two extra deck monsters, we do again play the two Masked Hero Dark Law. Again, you want to have this on board whenever you can because Dark Law is a phenomenal card. And if you ever get the board of Ophion and Dark Law, you have a very good chance of winning that game. Alright guys, that is my updated version of my Evilswarm deck post Secret Forces. Please let me know what you guys think of this new and updated list down in the comment section below. And as always, this is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.